Test, test. I'm on the me home. Hello. Okay. So, small announcement, very short announcement. This morning, teaching will be same as yesterday, and then afternoon teaching start mainly question answer start at 2:30, and probably finish before, but we'll see. So the real announcement is that afternoon start 2:30, and then at the end you can make offering, color scarf to Rinpoche, and that's it. Thank you.
Chipur. Modon, Saja, Dunginzana, or Rontapala, any, then Tezabus on Lujuris. Tati Lujutus Shasani, Tati Zaba, they keep on Sobate, Papa Yendatra, Negre, telling Doyo, Revis, Kachataba Yasalona, the Tapas and Dongumare. Jadunga Jatin Kong, Dozon Race. Penetare Ninsing le Sanadona, the big Nima Shaw, Hedon, Tredon, Deji Dembayona, Tiger and Beer and Berembese, Nima no Jesus and Road, yea or no, Tino you trail or no, and say Mabana Bomaza, Ungreva, Tino ye, Zonleo, getting the kill and does it on ye, Tapayo Mare, Mataparon Yim, Jinsi. And Joanna Manas upon Rogres, Tino Joel, Joanna Manas upon Rogres. Tin Joan Rogo, Jinsente, Canisana, Young Hane, Tape the cheap Conza Nam, Tane, Driven Bagio, Nambana, Sabashepe, Leaning the Nami mainly. Tilu on it, so the Panjo Tonyano, the Dejo, Chenam Chenyam Drover, then Lingam Bate, Kinti late and a Chimango days. Tim Hango Gosella, as a Sado Yong, Sen on Tanchi Jong, Yangozorambe, does in Yama pay Yavano, Yamba and Jores. Pena Malasan Donna, so on Don Chimbotan. Lunta Tavato, then the Lunta Kipala soap, Titaki Yavala Tene, this was a good some but ham now. Some the end of the Mandu Jay. Penna de Mandu Balatine, Tricro, Jetin Jones, Sado Sosoyon, Yang Jabon Bando, Juno Longeon, Tola. Me law you. Then Legation, Song Janayo, Song Yon, Song Yin, Pongo. Then Saji La Lodo La Sabata Layo, the Sigan the Machine, Lo Yi. Then the Susu Song Yabu, Cheton Yonayo, the Song Lote, Yi, the Tendada Mando, Tino Yit and the Dadon, Chabadon, Tomato, Neon. That's the king of Banasa, Sosolan Serne. When the jealous by Yay, Ta, Tom, a Sapantama, Z, Jipatama, Che, Tawataba, Tanta Yudu, Hukin Day, Tinta Ongores, Take Munza Jibamares, getting Kyokolo, Lusus Tegares, Gibatara, Tenandona Banasa. Yolin Jungores. You got Jadon, Sadala Yanao, Tella Pinsatane, Yonjab the Java Sakores. Yonjab the G, Tamno Joba, Tanda Songaga, Dando Dembawam, Topa Shiba Jinga, Yonjab Savaton, the Yombe Savaton, the Michianayo, the Tanjarambea. Tarungore. Gig Engachana, so Tashibigatane, Young Gains and Allo Chimagango, Sanam Chenda, Shavala Dene, then Gig Sanam Teo, Yongore.
Tragen, Youngans of a carrot. Youngen, Tragens of a Surido.
Tragins. The Shavala and Ungores. Then Pama sing. Pama sing.
Patsun.
Pansing Ore. Answer Yunja to the Tikasala. You don't pay that way in the Sami. Segores. Angel. Then the Tabakat on the Sena. Talamombaji Yunja Tabasina. Pay Messican. Pendo Himongore. You don't drag in Sevate, Masa namje lo yin de lu chimbo no. Yongza thoma dragin sang re.
영상스라?
Yongza sewa de ngarong ko cawo. Cawo tiga cawo.
나서.
Yara ba yana dragin chare.
나서.
Ni thoma yana de dragin.
그래.
Ta lu thombo tabe koro. Senam de la tene. Ti to so no. To sa thong. Ni shiwa ka sala yongza so yuka ya mo ma zena. Ta gig ma son te on. Nye jig chen son te la pe. Yong nyong ro go re. Ve chwa. Ta ndata se na ta ne kong pen re. Chang mo shang pen yang. Te yong che tong ga yong che se wa. Te la. Ma sa me ka tong. Ma nyim bu. Mong bu ne sang re. Ma ze ta ne yong che de pen bu ro go re. Pande ge so go re. Te ta bu ko ro. Yong che so lu mong bu yo re. Ta ta pen bu so wa yong ge so. Tong song. Re jong ne me sha ka so la. Pe bo ge ta yong che cha ma de den de che. Kong zo yong che xue ge no. Ju dong da bo do. Ta cai de sa ta sa sa wa da ge yo ma de ma. Jin da da yu je tong de so no da bo do. Yi na yong pen bu ge lu so te pande ge chi lo ma re. Yin kang de se na ta du jam ne ka re. pen bu jam ne de pen ten ba sha ra. Do ge re. Pande jam ne de ta du song je ja gu re. Ta du ja yu ta de yin ba la de ne. Pen de ge ta ne ja rong gu ma re. De wong zong ma si pa je ju yong cha se wa je. De ne ma de ja wa ne se pe la ta wa de je. Yo re. De ma se ta pe ma yong bam se wa de. De ne de yong chong je. Yo re. De de song ge pa shi de ne ja de mong gu yo ma re. De kang de se na ngokong ma song wa. Ta koron de yong ta ba de yong na yo. Ngo le jin de se wa ta ba tong. Te ta ba ngun ru ga re me ba tong. Ta la tra ki tong. Me long lo so ba me ba. Koro tan de sa re. Ma song shen. Te la la ka shi yo ta la yo. Te la la ka shi tong. Lum dang chen. Ka shi se wa te dru bu ge ne. Kansana la me ge nong. La me ge dru ko se. Ka chi me ba te. Ka me ba tong. Te yong te nga long yong la o yi se te long me ne long ji ki ca wa. Do na ka yin nong a me ba tong. Long gu ji ba me ba te xiong na. Te ta ba xie na. Te koro yong ta ba yong yo ma re. Te ma ze ta ne no tu se la so pa ga. No la ri ra mi. Te ge yong ja yong. Pe mong bo yo re. Tene te ta ba no tu se la so pa. No la tu so je tong. Yi la ngo ru no. Ngo ru ba da bo. Mo ne re. En yo pen ge ma re. Ti yi la gam re yo re. Gam re ge no ne yo. Gam re chen bo. No se re ta je la. Pe ho ja bo yo re. Gam re ngen ba tel te ne. Yong ta ju ge. Pa yo. Ti dan pa che chen bo. Zang bo yo re. Pe ya na. Lama zong bo je yo. Ti ge tene gong no to long che. Yin da dong. Chen chen ne pen ta ba. Lama nong go yo na yo. Sang zi ngen ba che yo ne. Ti se ne ken ne. Ti pa la. Ti me che de ne. Ka ndo wa. Ti nong yin yo re. Ta te ta ba gam re. Tong bu nen ba la. Nang ji ba rong ge. Te gam re te. Ngu ne ngu to ta ta ba ka. Ta tan ba ka. Nyen ru do. Te ngen se. Xi ba jen je. Ma ru la. Ta 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 xi ba je. Tene gam re te ge. Pa chi chen po sa me. Ngu ru sa je pa xua te. Te ta ne pa chen po xi ge re. Ta ma nge. Te nong yen tang da. No la ka re na. Kong Dunda Yong, il Tombo, Tanda, Tata Shivaye, Drubatella, Dautembachi. Musuga, non job con ronge, siguri. Conri Sela, Dautembachi Mazona, Rigand, Dundre Yoris, Rayon de Nicoro, or the Nintapa, Town Tautabachi, Gugris. Tillers to song to Nimares, Tombo Lati Drubata and Bancabo. Nisa Gonde Nain Tabato, Cassichamore, Callichamore. Gonde Sena, Tuning, Pachi Moa, Consorno, sit on me, the 10,000 Lachimbo, the end in the drop, out Gonde in Tabata, the Nizano. Travatapate, Davaja Kalangure, Untabu Mari. Jinsin Tiana, Devi Tane, Pe Tap Dehi. Tane Sunam Chimbo, Joa. Non June, the song, Tanda Lamoyon, Lamu Batteries. No Ni, Coro, Druta Ye, Kando Namja. Kangon Tolewa, emergency. Temo Judy Tamane, Dubber Yoni, Saviga Sawa, Nimbota, Jevakade, just Lomo, Cousin Body Lomo, good. Body Lomo good at the Tetalga, Nuba Chambo, Salavan Chambo, and a Yabu Jinsin County Sena. Congo Tep, Saki, and all the Oris, you need that. You can deny some civil tangle. Tommy Conne, number Son Jejong. Does a wong, Saji Smarters at the Oris. They let the never Son Jejong, Mamane, Sheriff Japar, Samba, Tapsana Yon. Does a twin him, Sanchi and Damji. Does she the con, Sajibal neighbors on you so much. Tronecon, then the Nikan on the Dona, the young zones at the mother Masona, the marches on Jima Masona, and not to move along the hot and that Mebala, young zone again. Tata Conda Shuba Yan, and the Sonja de Sonja Summer Johnny, the end of the pay, but Latin, Salam Chiwata. Yet I was so Dona. Jam King. Dilatane, the Regan, the Gondesani, Yomare, Gonde loss of a pay. You see, this and the on a second, the long Yansolona, the Pentochio, on Lana me by him, but Chamerumbuche Congo, Gone, then the dry is.
Continuing from yesterday, we ended yesterday morning with a presentation of how the prosperity of all varieties, not just food or wealth, but all of these different fine things and arts that came from all the countries surrounding Tibet came to Tibet. And to the point where the land of Tibet was pretty well saturated with all of this goodness, all of this prosperity, to a point where it wasn't, you couldn't really distinguish between the prosperity of the place, the goodness of the place, and the prosperity of the people or the inhabitants, because it was so all-pervasive. And so there was a time of tremendous good fortune and prosperity. And as we saw yesterday, this was largely because of several things. The fundamental cause was the previous aspirations of the Buddha and the Bodhisattvas, and also of those individuals who had the good karma to be born in that land at that time. And also through the condition of the performance of the summoning of prosperity, originally by this Mantradaran king at the behest of the monkey king under the instruction of Avalokita. For this to have happened the way it did, Rinpoche said it was, of course, essential that the yogi, the Mantradaran king who began this, had a consummate mastery both of the ceremonial aspect and mantra and samadhi. And in that way, he was able to ensure that the land of Tibet had acquired tremendous prosperity. However, prosperity is not permanent because it is not in the nature of things for something to last forever. We know from the fluctuation of the seasons and from the cycle of day and night that no conditioned state can last beyond its allotted time. At the end of the day, when the sun sets behind the mountains, both the light and the warmth we've enjoyed during the day dissipate and eventually vanish. So because of impermanence, even though prosperity may be acquired or generated as it was centuries ago in Tibet, it will eventually dissipate. Nevertheless, this does not happen without a reason, without causes. Now, just as we saw that one of the causes of the generation of prosperity is the previous aspirations and good karma of those who are going to be born in that land in which prosperity is present. Similarly, a major cause of the diminishment of prosperity in a place or in a country is that those born there are those who, in spite of being born there, have a great deal of negative karma. And therefore, as the majority of the people born in a certain country have negative rather than positive karma, this causes what you could call the average karma of the country to become bad. As a result, the degree of prosperity present and available in that place diminishes. This happens in part because of the changing times. That as times get worse, the beings born in this world and in specific parts of it tend to be those with less positive karma. It happens because the merit of beings diminishes. And as our merit diminishes, our fortune, our prosperity, our possessions, our wealth diminish as well. Now the signs of the diminishing of prosperity are that, for example, someone who was successful up to a certain point and was able to achieve everything that they set about begins to discover that that is no longer the case, that their former success has come to an end, their former effortless accomplishment of, or fulfillment of their wishes is no longer possible. In an environmental sense, the diminishment of merit will be evident in the changing of the seasons. The seasons will, the weather, the climate will change, so that the summers are cold and the winters are hot, and therefore the crops don't grow properly. There's not the right amount of rainfall, either too much or too little. There will be frosts that destroy or limit the amount of available crops, hailstorms, and as a result of these things, famine. Rainfall will fluctuate, and therefore the produce of farming, as well as the livestock in the country will suffer. Other signs of diminishing merit in a country, diminishing prosperity, are prevalent illness, new contagious diseases, epidemics, and so forth. This can also be felt on an individual or family basis. When an individual or person or a particular family's merit decreases, they'll experience, first of all, that the elders in the family will start to die earlier than they otherwise would have. So one's parents may pass away. And because the fruit of your former good karma from generosity has been used up, you now start to experience, as a result of your bad karma, you start to experience everything slipping out of your hands. Your luck changes for the worse, and your prosperity diminishes. Your power, authority, position, influence all start to diminish. You find yourself unable to accomplish anything that you attempt to get done. If you are in business, your business will decline. If you are a farmer, your farm will not do very well. And people will start to turn against you, and you may be attacked, either physically or by lawsuits or unscrupulous competitors, and so on. These are signs that it is necessary to perform the protection of prosperity, to renew and replenish one's prosperity. And therefore, the protection of prosperity will actually help in these situations. Another thing that can happen, Rinpoche said, is, and he said this term has two meanings. One is a great uncle, so the death of elders. But it can also mean somebody who, an elder of the community or family, who was known to be successful, who was known to sort of be the embodiment of that family's prosperity. They will die without much warning. Now, with regard to prosperity summons, prosperity protection practices, there are many different traditions. There are some that come from the new schools, the Sarma tradition, some that come from the ancient tradition, the Nyingma tradition, and there are also some that come from the indigenous Tibetan religion of Pön. Rinpoche said he's actually seen Pön prosperity protection conducted when he was in Sikkim. And the words are different, but basically the structure, purpose, and function of the ceremony is pretty much the same, including the waving of the arrow, silk, and so on. However, Chame Rinpoche says, but Buddhists should not perform the Bumpo version. And the reason for this is that our ultimate source of refuge is different. As a Bumpo, one takes refuge in Tumpa Sherab, the teacher. And as a Buddhist, one takes refuge in Buddha Shakyamuni. So because there is a divergence of primary objects of faith, it's not appropriate for Buddhists to perform the Bön practice, as similar as it may be. There are Indian sources of prosperity protection, and several that come from the dharma or treasure tradition. The problem with many of these older traditions is that they're not complete. So in other words, the Indian and treasure sources, as fine as they are, will often include a small print that will say, here you need to chant this, and at the end you need to chant this. And the problem is that the this isn't included and is no longer available. So Rinpoche said the problem with some of these is that they're not incomplete as documents, but they're incomplete in that you don't have all of the supplements that you need. Another problem with many of these traditions is that the living lineage of their practice has disappeared. The lineage consists, of course, not only of the empowerments and the transmissions, but the actual practical use of something, so that each master can actually show their disciples how to do it and give them practical guidance and instruction. And if that disappears and it's just a matter of empowerment and transmission, it's no longer a fully living tradition. Even worse, in some cases, the transmission lineage for these texts has disappeared. Now, there are some practices where all the bits and pieces exist, and the living lineage has continued, such as the 18 wealth gods of Vaishravana and so forth. And it is true that these wealth deities do possess and can bestow the city of wealth. There's no problem there. The problem comes up with their what are called gapdre. And gapdre, sometimes they call it jabdre, which means following spirits. Gap means hidden spirits. So in either case, the hidden spirits or following spirits are many deities have mundane attendants. And when you associate with the deity, then the mundane attendant gets into your life. And this can be a problem, because a wisdom deity, of course, is a wisdom deity and won't turn on you. But a mundane deity is a mundane deity, and therefore is subject to the same let's say, mood swings as the rest of us. And in particular, when it's these wealth gods, because of the way that, for various reasons, often the following god or spirit is the King Pehar. And Pehar is can be difficult. And so when you do this, if you're going to do this kind of Shravana sadhana, or the 18 wealth god sadhana, before doing it, you have to gain control of the following spirit, in this case, a Pehar. And gaining control means you have to do the practice that involves that brings control until the signs of control are evident, which is very difficult. And if you don't gain control of the following spirit before doing the wealth deity practice, then it is a certainty that the following spirit is going to mess with you, cause obstacles. Khenpo Rinpoche said, it's a little bit like, it's a little bit like relating to a great and perfect guru who had a really nasty secretary. The other thing about, aside from the issue of following spirits, is that in order to use one of these wealth deities, like Vaishravana or so forth, for the accomplishment of prosperity, you first have to have practiced the sadhana of that deity until you gain signs of accomplishment of the deity. Because in the context of that type of cycle, the accomplishment of prosperity is an application. Long before there were computers, Tibetan Buddhism had apps. And just as with computers, you have to have the basic software before you can put in the apps. So in the same way, before you can do an application practice, you must have completed the approach and accomplishment of the deity. Which means, again, you have to have practiced that deity until you gain signs of general accomplishment, and only then can you focus on the application. And in any case, there's going to be a following spirit. And it's very difficult, even if you gain the signs of having accomplished the deity, it's still very difficult to gain control over the spirit. For a couple of reasons, Rinpoche said. First of all, these are difficult times, which means that there are extra obstacles. Beyond the generic obstacles that are always there, we have extra ones. Secondly, our lives are very short and very, very busy. So it's unrealistic to actually expect or to hope to be able to control these following spirits or hidden spirits and so on. So does that mean that we are out of luck? No. There is an exception to all of these situations, and that is the Devi, the goddess Lakshmi, or Mahashri Devi. Using doesn't sound very nice. Accomplishing prosperity through her intercession, through Lakshmi's intercession, is easily done It does not require a tremendous difficulty. And she has tremendous blessing. So therefore, in many different sutras and tantras, the accomplishment of prosperity by means of Lakshmi is very much emphasized. And so the fundamental mandala being accomplished for this purpose is the 9 Devi or 9 goddess mandala of Lakshmi. Lakshmi as principal, surrounded by 8 other goddesses. Now, the reason why Lakshmi is an exception to all of the other things mentioned is, and Rinpoche said, it's actually explained in her praise in the liturgy, which says, although you achieved Buddhahood countless kalpas ago, you continue to appear among us as a bodhisattva on the 8th bhumi. So in other words, Lakshmi is gentle and safe and kind because she is fully awakened, a Buddha. But she's also close and available, accessible, because she manifests as a bodhisattva. So therefore, she is a good, it's a practice that won't let you down. It's dependable, it's accessible, because she is. And her blessing is tremendous. Her personality is gentle. She's peaceful. And so therefore, she's not attended by any particularly aggressive hidden spirits, because aggressive hidden spirits aren't attracted to hanging out with peaceful divinities. And so therefore this is what we do in order to accomplish prosperity.
부모 덤보다 제고 마시 봐. 전부 요박라네. 요도 그래. 다들 대사 라 까부라 그래. 나 대소나 강만도. 네 상한마네 대왕도 가슬라. 근데 전에 개차시에 대해 나용 타고도 요용 타서 옛날에 용저자지 드세티게 등기데 배 돈이름보 송라테네 드서노 간다 라마통바나라 용저자지 키다 나도 요도 그가이 나카히나 유마된 거는 요바다 가송 그때는 배 로그 말이 삼바다 마른 거 살아요 말이 옛날 등송을 가서라 다다 당아대 또요 나요리 다다 나서는 봐 그거 로기노 대통기대 뭐내잖아요 파절라 받다요 받다 맞절라 뭐다요 받아 아네 내선도 타서 될때는 되게 시훈다고 되는 자소 dentro 용제사요. 용제사를 가면 용제에서 유사 그말이. 대구마대 카로 고마세게 그 말이. 용제 나마 녹거세요. 저데 네데 너머레스에서 까워요. 대기에서 뭔가 뭐를 묻히게 사르는 동보 트라루 더네 트루 티바 차소 더네 로모트인지 저기하고레스 엘테네 다다 언제 남았는 거 맞아 조리스 바라라시오레스 그때 오다네 상요 그 용보사지오레스 용보사데 제가 가이도 못하고요 보바 소담담이 된다고 말이 엘테네 어용고 배다 보바데 마이나 단다 라마노 노사가서 유다가서 보바지요 어서난데모
라
보바 손난데모
소노메모
어야 디포와도 그래서 대해서 소사스게데 란들라 단다요 란다 다 용드르세야지 그래서 다 데마데 조조보라난다 저 dum바치르난다 너고레스 나 소다데 가서나 배만 남아지 주고 그래 되는 레라보다 되는 상요 저는 데마 근데 휴바네 내가서 만나지 가마를 휴바로 되었다네 반사 동서한테 휴바텔라 다 별라 빌 상가 뭐뭐 보세요 잡네 뒤에 뒤게 오래지 된마상 가마도 어때지 된데 야지게 된다 어때리 내가 고알라 용서 바르지마세 소와세테 당면서 신신 고마요서 캔즈가 되리지 되르더네 칸에 비기는데 이게네 바지지 봐도 대노라더네 쇼용나 용르세 쇼용나 용어세나 오마 공야가지고 그래 그때 보고 하지 말이지 내가 땡기네 연락되네다 메타 메파가다네 제 트로트 테리 제 트로트 텐테 요고 그 텔레 옌바가 용제 넘버 나서 봐 가신 zamzam치 먼저 나온 데로리 내가 롱코알라 안에 소아 세다 행게 안다 오마교사티 네들리 대노라다네 추가로 공화도 무슨 출로 되는 오말로네 추가 공화지 그 솔라 공거리 계단다 용기사의 the combat long long that is our solar sobatamil, Tuji.
Tunju, Sena? Tunju? The la Truju, Sena, the Tunju,
Oh, did Tombo ten Jin
Gematongi.
Jin Takavizo.
Oh, la.
Then only the parts of the zone side, tank do. So then, Mojab, Dokabo, or is the Dokara, didn't only Yungas. So, Sunday go goes there is. Use the Yarumba. Not even her, no, the land couple of them, lay low over. There is.
Now, if you look at which you will be able to, because, it will be distributed when it's next done, the fundamental text, the basic text that we use for this, which we call by its short name, which is Yangchap, the Protection of Prosperity, is by Chame Rinpoche, whose commentary here Rinpoche has been using. And in that text, he gives a description of the surface, in other words, the shrine, the basic setup for the shrine, and the substances needed, the time, and the astrological conditions. And he says, as those are clear in the treatise, I won't explain them here. Because in the 6 other texts that we use as part of the Lakshmi practice, there are constant references to this zhong. I'm calling it the treatise because it's the main source text for all the others. So, and then Chame Rinpoche here makes a remark. He says, whatever of the materials mentioned you can acquire is sufficient. Rinpoche says that he's making a reference to the fact that some of the most extensive setups, Chame Rinpoche gives you a choice of 3, elaborate, intermediate, and simple setup. Some of the most extensive setups for this involve stuff where you'd think, Rinpoche said, nobody could ever find this stuff. How could anyone acquire it? And unless some kind of tremendous yogi were able to summon this stuff magically through samadhi, we're never going to find this stuff. So Chame Rinpoche's point here, which is very important and comes up again and again in the literature surrounding this Lakshmi practice, is that what you do actually need some stuff, but it's not that difficult. It can be arranged. And so up here, Chame Rinpoche goes through what he calls the 6 indispensables, which are the 6 things that you really gotta have for the Lakshmi practice. And to give you the punchline ahead of the joke, we do have them here. Rinpoche has managed to get them. So otherwise, when I go through them, before I say that, you're going to get anxious and think, oh, when do I find that? But Rinpoche did get all this together. So, because the first one kind of sounds like it would take some schlepping to find, but he did it. He found them. Okay, so the first thing, and now these are divided into permanent supports and temporary supports, and I'll let you know when we switch from permanent to temporary. The first of the 6 is the prosperity arrow. Now, in general, Rinpoche already described the arrow. He said it was made of bamboo, it was square, cut square, had 3 sections, had a silver mirror attached to the top, which is where the feathers are, 4 feathers, and 5 colored silk. Actually, for prosperity arrow, it needs to be a little more special even than that. The arrow has to come from a man who has 7 living sons. Attached to we call it the neck, but it means just under the feathers, is a turquoise, in addition to the mirror and the 5-colored silk. The turquoise has to come from a woman who is the mother of 7 daughters. Now, in the treatise, it just says 7 children, but Rinpoche said 7 daughters here. And now, that sounds kind of tough, but Rinpoche says you can actually find this in Taiwan. And I did, and I had one, then I offered it to other teachers, and then anyway, now we have 5 of them. All of them are correct, and they're in the Lakshmi temple. So don't worry about that. We found them. We've got them. So that's the first thing, is the prosperity arrow. The arrow itself from the father of 7 sons, the turquoise from the mother of 7 daughters. Oh, and the children have to be living at the time of acquisition. Okay, the next thing is the prosperity bag or prosperity sack. Now, in spite of the fact that we use the words bag or sack for this, it can't be, Rinpoche said, just any kind of bag or sack. It has to be shaped, sewn together in such a way that it takes the form, the bag takes the form of 9 breasts. And we used to wonder exactly what this was, but eventually Rinpoche said, Mipam wrote and drew how to actually sew it, how to cut it and sew it and make it. So based on Mipam's instructions, we have that. So the second thing is the prosperity sack. And the function of the prosperity sack is that many of the prosperity materials are held in there. Okay, the third thing is the prosperity cup. And again, this can't be just any clay or porcelain cup. It has to be that specific design of cup that's given to lamas, losar, called Sunam Demo. And that is, we have that. So that's the third, the arrow, bag, and cup. The fourth is the plate. The plate is actually easy because it only has to be, it can be of the finest or of intermediate material, but the only other requirement is that it be in the shape of an 8-petaled lotus, which is easy to find. So the fourth is the plate. The fifth is the juniper. And the juniper is wrapped around with a silk that has been dyed different colors. So those first 5 are of the 6 are the 5 permanent supports. And then the 6th one is a temporary support, and you'll see why when it is. It's a milking pail, like a wooden pail that you would use when milking a cow, that is adorned at its lip, at its top, again with woolen thread, and it's filled with either milk or yogurt as available. So those 6, the 5 permanent supports, and the 6th, the temporary support, are called the 6 indispensables. In addition to that, you also need, for a later part of the ceremony, magical stones. Now, this word tun means a magical a weapon or a magical force. And in this case, it's stones that are mixed in also with white mustard seed, because you need that also as tun. And these are used to bestow protection upon the beneficiaries and the prosperity supports. So those are the materials, the minimum materials.
Congress Sonam Chimbochi in the Rete, to Yin another Yamlin Chimbochim, and a grammar. Koro Semona, Zon the Mache. Some sort of Tamantangus. Tanga Sondo and Rolling Sing. Saloon Ron, the Majan. Munga Nir and Kajata, this is in Tom Goose and Chumbotora Conre, Tungre. Te Mantana, Kujikuman Hus.
Pardon? Really? Come Maria. That I shot. Well, you put on
The Yenda in his
Tapa, Dele Mama Tongamare, Dele Nima Tongamare, Cotremurico.
no. The name go con Jason Sona Ninton Law Thomas and Navatombo Shaude. The only known by Yondo, Telco Becachene. Then in Chimney Cage, Beckett, she songs. Most of the guitar songs. That's the only known by that's about Chimbo, it's a Gangaga, Nino Lola, Chimney Pushka, the Tomat and Yamashon, the Casajima, Push songs. Tea. Doctor, the Kiva cutting a thing, eh? Jabatalame, Dharma Salal, Pem Masib, Chimemombo Pool, Oppositions. The Nanzu, the Casala, Taye, Consonant, Zoning, Chigi, Losa, Chirangin Pamasa, Amatapan Dane. Chimipogios, Tico Yokorongo, Yaw, Titanagoro, Roson Ronrayo, Ronrano, Vekachin, Tiki. This is no Tabimanas. Tikasangaro, he was. The years Chamirumbuchi, Sango Noni, then Chimipoga, Sano. Marunga. Manzo Rin Lava no Yin, Momona, Lava Yin. Take Councilatane, Chimiga, Ripid, Sonjiga, Yutriki, Sava Sangi, Chimapatanayo, Tia, Tiga, Sonam Tiga, Kabatik Padala, Membenonda, Chambuga Badanga, Sonambo, Sonne, Chimiga Pan, Sanjim, some books. Things on the Tendrickson on Chimoyobate. Chimito the Poo, Tissanarino, Sampada, Johnson's. Tate Coglogeries. The name and I don't judge go in there. Cotane Pumbotana Co, Laon Corazon Jap. There more melon there. They say, Tate Castle, Robachem so not Tendinaries. Nigitake, Pumbota, Meraton race. Meraton Sane, Ya Nanza and I honde. I don't know. Gambate Maseba, the Ginyamsas. Lavon Kawan on travel diet. Seven doesn't know. Chasha. One is a no Chason Yams, some Patabache. I don't know how songs. Take the Nima chamber, Nimare, Nima Mobile, to know on the Shagdos. Tell it in the Nanzo. Lazy Nungo down on the chain and the Kanga number not about 2 songs. The name Tangarunga, Lhamo Palchen, Young Chagiti, Chagin over the sound of Matutina, Gekon Lanson so good to somebody, Gumbu Cordon, then Tom Handa Wadon Gondato, Besso Change. The Besso Change. Lando Yapo John Ganga Yapon Dayson. Lapa de Ticasalatane, Gekon Yazo Samon de Pala, then Gala Lamatanda, Pontero, Confessons. Chetit Sulimarid, then the Confessons. Tin no yitane, tan Khenpo Ujin pay ore. Tene landa, Khenpo attention pay song. Tele ten the Mahakalan Gen Conte, so the knowledge of Nova Kanga Kadition of Ropachos Assault, Lamatrashi Conde, Sun you to Chipatamchi, Cha Son Reson. Tele ten Oneg Korum, Namaga no Yinkig, as the Jito, to say, Tansons. Tele ten the Bang Oneg, Sumato Soga, Pentuchi Mondo, some Tafjons. Tin Sunday, Lamapaga, Yonchote, Daton, Shijan, Dagujane, Drangdo Jeromanga, Sazi, the Commonwealth, Pet, the young Gidon, Tayon Daton to the child, on the gender, taking the Tata, Massing Yamam Bosongo, your age. Yanata, Tanda country, Miss Anna, shoot the Zotamates. Chöde the Garonchi, Yapu is so good to some on the chair. Then the Zonin of 1,000 days of means. They are poaching day nothing on the Yonchan than the Yongo Dam, taking a pair, Yapons and the song on Terradine, the young Lamon Park, Conjog, Chagin of someone over there. Tender is that they get on shoving your way. And thought me about lodging of what I don't think you are.
I'd like to tell you the story of why we decided to create the Lakshmi temple or Lakshmi shrine. When this monastery building was built, the instruction and advice of the third Jamgon Rinpoche was that in its construction, 2 protector temples, 2 protector shrine rooms should be built. And that one would be the actual Gonkang, or main protector temple, primarily for Gompo Benachen. And that the other one should be for the protectors of all the Kaju in general, or guardians of all the Kaju in general. Now, aside from his saying that to us, none of us had any idea exactly what he meant by that, protectors of all the Kaju in general. We couldn't find any historical record of such a protector shrine or protector temple. And so we didn't really know exactly what his intention was, what we were exactly supposed to do with it. So in the absence of any other name for it, we called the one the Mahakala temple, the Mahakala room, and the other one we called correspondingly the Mahakali room, but we didn't actually do much with it. Now, later on, in the 2000s, we began to experience, as those of you who've been around for a while will know, we began to experience a lot of obstacles and impediments to our various projects and so forth. Now, during the 1990s, and until his death in 2001, one of the major members of this community was a man named Michael Duran. And Michael was a very nice guy, very educated. He had professional accomplishments, and especially he was extremely patient. And he helped this monastery, this community, and all of us a great deal. But he passed away from cancer in, I think, 2001. When he drew his last breath, he saw a brilliant white light and many Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, as he told me, because I was there. He saw a bright light like sunlight. So it's evident that Michael had a great deal of merit, since not everybody sees these things when they die. As he was approaching his death, I had told him some things about the bardo, which saddened him and made him cry. But when he actually came to his death, he wasn't sad at all. He was perfectly happy. He pulled out his breathing tube and he tried to pull off the things connecting him to the life sign meters and so on. And he said, "Oh, what a brilliant white light. Who turned the lights on?" And I didn't see anything because it was his own appearance. And then he said, "Oh, all the Buddhas are here." Now, present at that time were Tenzin, myself, and a woman who was assisting Michael in his final moments. And then he said, "No problem, no problem," and died. So he died very, very happy and seeming to experience tremendous visions. Now, the thing about it was that I knew he was a really nice guy. I knew he'd been very, very helpful to us. And I assumed he must have somehow accumulated a great deal of merit. But it's not like he was a particularly intense practitioner. Michael Rinpoche said was very, very playful. And, he did his job and he did his work and he helped people, but he was pretty relaxed. He was an avid smoker, which he called fire puja. He would say, "I've got to go off and do fire puja." And he definitely drank beer and would say, "Well, I have to have a beer before I go to sleep, or I won't sleep." Rinpoche said that, and I said, "Beer?" Well, anyway. So what happened to Michael, or what did Michael do in his life that caused his death to be such a happy passing? You probably all remember the Y2K thing. Everyone was very concerned that something awful was going to happen when the year 2000 began. So in preparation for this, Michael had the idea of what we have since then called First Light, which was to have Buddhist centers all over the world at sunrise, wherever they were, light lamps and perform lamp aspirations. And this was Michael's idea, and he also organized it. He created it, he did the networking, the advertisement necessary to get everybody on the same page with this. And his arrangement of this was so influential that even His Holiness the Dalai Lama in Dharamsala offered an extraordinary number of butter lamps at sunrise on January 1st that year. Now, you all know that every year in preparation for the International New Year, Western New Year, we do the Amitabha practice, culminating with the first light ceremony on New Year's morning. Well, this was Michael's idea. He created this. He designed it. Now, at the time of his death, I didn't know particularly what it was he'd done that had caused him to accumulate so much merit. And I didn't figure it out until years later when I was teaching here Khenpo Rinpoche's essay on the benefits of offering butter lamps. And in that essay, he says that the merit of offering even one small lamp to a single Buddha will cause the person who offers it to experience illumination without darkness for an entire kalpa. And when I studied the text in preparation for teaching it, it hit me. That must have been what happened to Michael. That must have been how he accumulated so much merit. Okay. Now I'm going to explain the connection between Michael's and our topic, the prosperity accomplishment. When he passed away in 2001, his body was driven around in a circumambulation around the monastery, brought in to the shrine room, and then he was cremated elsewhere. And when we came back from Michael's cremation ceremony, and I looked at the monastery, it looked terribly diminished to me. Something was missing, as though the lights were out, the colors were less. It looked sad and diminished and depleted, as though its merit had just flowed out or gone. And I didn't just experience it the day of Michael's cremation. I experienced this over several days. And sure enough, it was then, after Michael's death, that all of our problems with the administration and other obstacles really began. I still, at the time, in spite of all of this, I still had no definite plan regarding a Lakshmi temple. But I did begin to focus on the primary Gunkan, the Benachen temple. And so I made the arrangements for the creation of the images, the statues of Khenpo Benachen and his entourage, the painting and arrangement of all of the tankas, and all of the other arrangements. And as the Gunkan, as the protector temple started to come together, things began to brighten up around here. Things started to look up. Apparently fortuitously, but very auspiciously, our protector chaplain, Lama Tundup, showed up, along with Khenpo Ujin and Khenpo Tenkyong. And around the same time, the protector temple came together. As with every other project of this nature, I would have been unable to achieve it without the kind and hard work of Lama Tashi Dundup, who oversaw the installation of the dharanis into the images and so forth. But somehow, through all of this coming together, the magnificence that I felt we had lost when Michael died returned. And I became more than ever certain of the benevolent intercession and assistance of our protectors. It was inspired by that I gained the idea of using our other protector shrine as a Lakshmi temple. And I commissioned the creation of the images in Taiwan, invited the Vajra Master of Trongu Monastery and so forth. And as you all know, we performed this successfully this past year. Now, when I was going through the setup, I said, we have this, we have this, we have that. I managed to get this, managed to get that. That is true of everything except one thing, which is the specific type of altar that we need, a very specific design, altar design, that we need for the Lakshmi temple. Somehow I have not yet been able to get that made. Once that is made, then we can perform the ceremony in its full completeness with the locking of the doors of prosperity or to prosperity and so on. I did it.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, thank you.
That is.
The Loju Kotavi Shuri, Mr. Given Review, me, can he, Yana Ronga, Tomin the Sab, came to Koya Baton, that I saw in Baton. Mahumba, Sanjus Chibi, given David Tamji. It did the Kajo Sinking Tamji, Neka de Jiton, Papa Sansoji. Longjedong, Bajo, Manyamba, Gone Gond, Pivaton. Tadu Sanjila, Tambuchuki and Kine, Rebe, Zosonja, Gombom, Rimjig Top, Chidu Muaton, Melashugi.
So that's the story. And I don't know if there's any virtue in my telling you the story or not, but in any case, please join me in dedicating the virtue of this session and all virtue accumulated by yourself and all others throughout past, present, and future to the immediate achievement by all beings of perfect prosperity, well-being, and comfort. Along with that, their achievement gradually of all manner of glory and spiritual wealth, culminating in all of our achievement of the state of perfect Buddhahood, achieved through perfect knowledge and recognition of our own innate qualities.
Dharmachakra